In this video, we're going to look at how to write an equation of a line that's passing through a given point and is parallel to a given equation. So if you look at the example, it says write an equation of a line that passes through this point, 2, 3, and it has to be parallel to this equation. So there's two things that you have to know if you're going to be writing the equation of a line. So anytime I'm writing the equation of a line, remember that's y equals mx plus b, I always have to know two things. I have to know the slope, and I have to know the y-intercept. So that's going to be your m and your b. So the first thing is you can find the slope of this equation because it tells you that it has to be parallel. So that means it has to be the same slope as this equation right here. So you're going to use this equation to find the slope of your new line so that it's parallel to this equation. So this is, since it's parallel, you're going to use this to find the slope. So the first step here is going to be find the slope of my new line, which, since I have my old equation, is y equals negative 2x minus 5. I need to be parallel to that. I look at the slope of that line. You're always going to disregard the y-intercept, so I'd always just cross it off so you're not tempted to use it. And you're going to look at the slope. So the slope of the old line is negative 2, which means the slope of the line that's parallel to it is also going to be negative 2 because parallel lines have the same slope. So the slope of my new equation is going to be negative 2. The second step is you have to find the y-intercept. So that's the second thing we need. So in order to find the y-intercept, they give you a second piece of information, which is this point. So this point is going to be used to find the y-intercept. So use to find y-intercept, and to do that, use to find y-intercept. And to do that, you're going to plug the point into the equation. So use to find y-intercept by plugging into equation. So this is going to be your x, this is going to be your y. We know our slope of our equation, so we're going to plug in and solve for b. Because we have the equation y equals mx plus b. And you know three things. You know the slope that you want, and you know the x and y value that you want it to pass through. So plug in 3, plug in negative 2 for the slope, plug in x, which is 2, and we keep b because that's what we're trying to find. So remember, you're never going to use the old y-intercept, but you're going to use this point because you want this to be a solution to this equation, which means you want it to be on the line because it has to pass through it. So that's why we're plugging it in, because it has to work. So then we just go ahead and we solve. So negative 2 times 2 is going to be negative 4 plus b. So add 4 to both sides. So we get 7 equals b. So that means my y-intercept is equal to 7. So my equation that I want to write, a line that's parallel to that original equation and it's passing through the point 2, 3, is going to be y equals, here's my slope, negative 2x plus 7. So there's my answer. Now I do want to show you how to do this on a graph as well. So let's look at on the graph how we would go about doing this. So you would start off with plotting your point. So my point is 2, 3. So I start off with plotting that, 1, 2, 3. So this is the point that my equation has to pass through. And the slope of my line, so you still basically do number 1, where you look at the slope. You say, okay, the slope of the original is negative 2, which means the slope of the parallel line has to be negative 2 as well. So that means that I'm going to start at this point 2, 3, and I need to find the y-intercept. So I'm going to start by counting. So a slope of negative 2 is really like saying negative 2 over 1, because negative 2 divided by 1 is just negative 2, which really means you would be going down 2, and then I always go to the right first. So you would be going down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. to graph this line, but you can see that you're going in the opposite direction as the y-intercept, so then you just start going backwards. Up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1. And then what happens is you get this line, so here's my line. This is the line that's satisfying the conditions that it asked for, which means this line is parallel to this original line here, negative 2x minus 5, because it has the same slope as that line, and it's also passing through the point 2 comma 3 because that's where I started at. So all you would have to do is then just write an equation of the line that we just graphed. Well, the equation for it, we know that the slope is negative 2 because that's what we counted, so that it was parallel to the original. And all I would have to do is then just find the y-intercept. So the b value would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So since the b value is 7, it means I have plus 7 at the end. So either way, you get the same answer. But as you can probably guess, just like all of the other problems, if you only depend on graphically, there's going to be times where you're going to run into fractions or decimals, and the graph won't work because the y-intercept might be a fraction or a decimal. So you really have to know the algebraic way, but you can also use the graphical way to kind of check your work.